three common mistakes that people make right now uh, with respect to doing outreach is it's either or of three things. One, you need to have good infrastructure. Two, you need to have a really great list, right?
This episode is brought to you by Warmly. Warmly is an AI-powered GTM assistant that helps your outbound team stop wasting time and start targeting the right people at the right time. Here's the play. Your SDRs open LinkedIn, and instead of cold scrolling, they get real-time signals like who is researching solutions like yours, who just switched jobs, or who recently viewed your site. No CRM updates, no lead lists, just useful context surfaced where they already work. If you're doing outbound in 2025 and not using Warmly, you are behind. Try it for free at www.warmly.ai. In this episode of the GTM Engineering Podcast, I talked to Swapnil Kumar, Head of Growth at Smartlead. Swapnil came in with a clear message. Most outbound today is broken. And not because people are not trying, but because they are trying the wrong things. We dug into the three levers that matter most: infrastructure, lists, and copy. Miss one and the whole system falls apart. He explained why blasting generic emails from a single domain with 50 plus mailboxes is a recipe for disaster, and how something as simple as one domain, two inboxes, can preserve your deliverability and scale. We also broke down how top teams are layering tools like Smartlead, Clay, and Warmly to build high-intent, AI-powered outreach systems without sacrificing quality. But Swapnil did not stop at tactics. He challenged the idea that outbound is just a numbers game and reframed it as your first digital handshake. That means treating it with the care and context it deserves. He also started a birthday experiment that turned 15 minutes of outbound into 100 closed contracts by listening to customers, enriching data, and showing up like a human. Here's my conversation with Swapnil. Swapnil, welcome.
Yes. Thank you so much, George. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast.
So, as we were discussing the format before we begin, and as you know, we have three questions that we ask and let these three questions to be our guide for the conversation. And so, I would like to start with the trend, right? The trend that you see, and maybe it may be something that not many people follow and should pay closer attention to. But let that be the first question and the first topic of our discussion. A trend.
Awesome. I would love to jump right in. But before that, I'll just set some context, right? You know, it's actually fun being on the other side of the podcast because generally I'm the one who's asking questions on the other side. But the good aspect of this is, as the head of growth of Smartlead, I speak to a lot of users, a lot of them, right? Almost on a daily basis. And, speaking to the likes of some of our top users, top, like sending anywhere upwards of 2 million cold emails a month, right? And maybe even more. Uh, One of the most common trends that we see right now in the GTM space is most GTM teams treat outbound like it's a volume game, right? Uh, it was probably that 2 or 3 years ago, but not right now. Not with tools and AI progressing at the scale that it is and enabling you with better intent and signals, right? What we generally see is because people are treating it like a volume game, you're seeing low reply rates, you're seeing a lot of spam complaints. Your sales reps are frustrated throughout the board, right? You blast a generic list with a generic messaging instead of targeting on the basis of like intent and timing, right? And that's a common trend across. What separates the top performing accounts on Smartlead with the non-top performing accounts is literally the opposite of what I just said, right? uh, Instead of the spray and pray approach, people are taking time to build their lists on the basis of their persona, their ICP, right? Uh, People have real time behavioral targeting. Like you've got tools like RB2B, and so on for visitor identification and a lot of things, right? We've got tools like Clay, which now help you with intent signals, building very deep and personalized lists. In fact, even drafting content and pushing that together, right? Uh, and yeah, One of the primary problems that I see is people are not personalizing at scale. Rather than doing volume with generic lists, people should be focusing, and most GTM teams at the moment should be focusing on switching that to personalizing at scale and for intent, right? So yeah, that's one of the core, I would say, problems I see GTM teams facing right now.
Okay, so we discussed a problem. I mean, why, follow-up question here is, why do you think that happens?
Uh, so there are multiple reasons for that. I would say the first one is definitely due to a lack of focus on infrastructure and deliverability, right? Because people don't know how to set up their infrastructure, because your infrastructure acts like the foundation, right? So that's one of the core problems. If you're not setting up your infrastructure for and optimizing it for deliverability, no matter how much you send, right, it's not going to land in the inbox. And if it doesn't land in the inbox, you're not going to convert,
For
right?
people, sorry, just a minute here. For people who are not, familiar with like the terminology and whatnot, can you please describe what you mean by infrastructure? Cold email infrastructure, right?
So your cold email infrastructure essentially refers to how you set up your email accounts and domains, and how you make sure that you maximize them for deliverability. Deliverability is nothing but a measure of how probable or most likely your cold emails are to to land in the primary inbox versus the spam folder. And just a quick nudge here as well. Uh, what we've observed that works for users is one domain, two mailboxes, right? And you can set that across with respect to the kind of sending volume and the lead list that you're trying to target. What that does is, if you even end up burning one domain, at max you're losing two mailboxes, but you're not jeopardizing your sending infrastructure, which means your sending volume does not take a hit, versus people setting up one domain with 50, 60 mailboxes. If
Hmm.
that domain is blacklisted, you're losing 50, 60 mailboxes at a go. One
Hmm.
mailbox can at max 20 cold emails a day, 30 cold emails a day. You're losing 50 times 30, which is approximately 1500 cold emails a day in a go, versus 2 times 30, which is 60 cold emails a day at sending scale.
That's
So
a
it's
very
a
good
matter of
point.
your infrastructure. Yeah.
And by the way, can like can people handle all these things? Using a tool like Smartlead, or you have to use Smartlead and something else to,
So
for the
yeah,
domains, for the email
actually
accounts and
you
whatnot.
can. Yeah, you can. So what we recommend is you can use Smartlead and you can use external tools as well. The way we've set it up on Smartlead is we've actually gone ahead and created a marketplace like experience. The product that we use for that, or the name of the product, is called Smart Senders. What you can do is we have actually vetted vendors that are prime in this deliverability space, again taken from insights from our users, like what vendors are you using, what vendors are working for you. These vendors are essentially on board like a marketplace experience within Smartlead. So it's a done for you setup. All you have to do is select a domain, select the number of mailboxes, and in 3 easy steps you have your domains mailboxes set up for you and
Mm,
delivered to your account. The other way to do that is you can reach out to these respective individual vendors and they can get that set up for you. And right now there are a lot of really good vendors out there which are focusing on deliverability first. Right. So yeah, the it's either or, whatever works for the users.
that makes sense. Okay, so we discussed the problem. Another thing I would like to add before I move on to the next topic is, I mean, we were reviewing a we had a new client who signed with us at Restart, and we were on the website and we received a an email from the agency that runs their, I don't want to call it signal-based outbound because that's not what this is, but let's call it that way. Um, and the email was, I mean, created on the back end. It was just a clay workbook that was um, very messy and created in a very rushed way. The copy is, ChatGPT, no context, no research, no nothing. And the problem we both identified when we received these emails, after signing the client and like, we are excited to start working with them and whatnot, is that this thing, this little like touch point, like essentially misrepresents the brand. because it's not, it may be the agency, but they use you know, the name of a person inside the company, right? And
Right.
their email. I mean, is that how you would like to show up to prospects, to people checking out
No,
your website?
absolutely not. And that's a very good point that you've called out, actually. That's actually the second point that I was going to get up to, right? Like the three common mistakes that people make right now, uh, with respect to doing outreach is it's either or of three things. One, you need to have good infrastructure. Two, you need to have a really great list, right? It has to be vetted. It's not about creating a list of 20,000, 30,000 people. Even a hyper segmented, really well thought of and really well enriched list of even 1,000 people can give you better conversion rates versus like spraying and praying for 20,000 or 30,000 people. And the third part is copy. For any user on Smartly that faces an issue, it's either one of these three problems. And it's very simple. Any other guru on the internet claiming otherwise, I would not, agree with them. But what we've observed, and we have data to prove for it as well. We have our own internal data to prove for it, right? Uh, the amount of words that you cover in your copy, the number of follow-ups that you push, whether you're syntaxing your copy or not, right? uh, how personalized it is, what kind of variables you're using, what kind of intent. So I'll give you a prime example of what you should not be doing, right? Let's say you commented on a LinkedIn post, right? And I just received a similar email like this yesterday, right? Hey, I saw you commented on this LinkedIn post, and you know what the funny part was? They mentioned my competitor, right? And that's not the way you would want to do your cold email. It's not about just setting up an automation, creating a workflow, making some chat GPT kind of content and pushing it out, right? You have to think about the users. You have to think about the kind of value, the kind of offer you're trying to provide to your users. If you're not providing value, it just doesn't make sense. And especially in the world of cold email or cold outreach, right? It's think of it as your first digital handshake in the outreach world. If you're meeting someone for the first time, we're not going to start pitching to them immediately. You're going to get to understand them. You're going to build a relationship with them, right? You'll get to understand what their needs are as a user, whether they truly want your product or not. And I keep on telling my team and everybody else, people think sales is hard. It's not. It's truly not. You just have to be there and listen to people. If you listen to what they want, if you understand what they're truly looking for, then you can truly cater to their needs. And that's exactly what tools today help us do. For example, like a Clay or an RB2B, right? They essentially help you figure out these intent signals. They help you make these decisions for you rather than you doing this manually, which would have happened like 5 or 10 years ago, right? You can
Yeah.
do this right now with these tools.
So in this example, would you say that they shouldn't do that in the first place, or they should? It's okay doing that, practicing this play, this growth play, but you should do your research. You should spend a bit more
Yes.
time in the messaging and like the copy and the offer and whatnot.
Spend a lot more time. As I mentioned, it's a trifecta, right? Spend a lot more time on focusing on these three core factors. Make sure your infrastructure is right. Make sure your lead list is vetted, verified, enriched properly, right? And make sure that the offer and copy that you're creating is not just some random GPT template, right? That you're asking, like, let's say a Claygent or any GPT to like fill for you, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you put in that time, because that time is going to go a long way for you in terms of driving conversions.
Even if you do that, even if you choose to have AI somewhere in the process, right, in the workflow, sure, you can do that. But what we do is that we have human review as, one of the checkpoints, right? Because you can do that in Clay. In fact, you should do that.
Exactly.
You should add a column, and if that's, like approved by a human after they reviewed it, then you can just add it to the, I don't know, campaign or whatever, like a sequence that you have prepared and whatnot. So I don't know. I agree with you on that. Um, would you like to switch gears and discuss trends? Do you have
Absolutely.
any trends for us?
I just had one point to cover for the last part, which
Yes.
was, see, the point of you doing these experiments is ultimately setting up systems, right? Repeatable playbooks and systems that scale for you. The purpose of doing the experiment is not to automate the experiment. The purpose of doing the experiment is to understand what works for you. If you're messing up on deliverability, optimize it. If you're messing up on your copy or offering, optimize it. If you're messing up on your lead list, optimize it. But you will be able to figure out once you run these experiments what's working, what's not, right? Once you figure that out is when you set up the automations in place, right? You need a human in the loop. As you mentioned, you definitely need a human in the loop till you're running these experiments, right? But once that's done, automate it because you know now what works for you,
Yes.
right?
Yes. I agree. I agree. So what trends do you have for us?
A lot, but I'm going to stick to this particular one, which
Yes.
is, yeah, the one that we were discussing, right? It's the AI powered personalization with real time intent signals. Um, so to simplify it, it's basically combining multiple tools like Smartlead, Clay, Warmly, right? So on and so forth, and probably even LinkedIn for that matter, to drive intent-based outreach. What does that mean? You could be looking for intent signals, something like, switching of a job. Let's say if you're targeting CROs, right? You'd see when a CRO has moved to or switched to another company so that you could probably pitch your product. But even then, the goal is A, how do you ensure these tools communicate with each other? And B, how do you set up workflows for these tools? Because that's where the true power lies. You ideally want, as I mentioned, right? It's going one layer deeper now. You've run your experiments, but now you need to build systems that scale for you, right? And for those systems to scale for you, you need to have, like, think of it as going from infrastructure, lists, and copy to now scaling it to a system where you have smart lead, Clay, Warmly, and a lot more other tools that you could add in unison to build that system for you. So one trend that I do see people underutilizing right now is combining multiple tools in their tech stack to build workflows and experiment, right? People generally just take one tool and experiment. So if you're doing LinkedIn, then you're only going to be doing LinkedIn, right? And not combining that with outreach. If you're doing cold calling, you're only going to be doing cold calling, but not combining that with outreach. But people don't understand it's a multi-channel effort because a human being has his attention divided across multiple channels, right? You want to ensure that you're not being too, how would I say it, you're not being too nudgy about it, you're not poking the bear all the time, but at the same time you're ensuring that you're reaching out to these users at the right place and at the right time, and that's what tools like these enable you to do.
That's a good point. I mean, I could see as one because we are having conversations about what you just described, and it's our initial assumption, going into this, starting this new agency restart, was that like we had an idea of the who the ICPs, right, and like early stage, let's say close to Series A, and so they have a certain size and whatnot because they don't have it figured out. But we are having discussions, and we are early, like we have 1 month since we launched, and we are having discussions with companies that are in later stages and they don't have it figured out, and I'm like, wait a minute, like that's interesting, because if they don't have this figured out with so many people and like experience and like resources, then this means that the upside here is huge, right?
Yeah.
But I would see one of the reasons I would see, for that, why that happens, I would explain it, is maybe because I don't want to frame it in the wrong way, but maybe because many companies, I mean, their GTM teams kind of played, in easy mode, until
Yes.
this point. And it's easier, as you said, like it's easier to have scattered efforts here and there. Oh, we have, these two people who do outbound. And then, oh, we have, like our SEO team, AI search team and whatnot. And then we have, even though when you like when you see the big picture, you can see that, oh, I can combine all these little pieces and like, you know, uh, make more out of my efforts, right? But that's not easy. And I don't know if that's the reason or, why you think this happens, but
So there are, I would say yes, I would agree with you to some extent. Yes. Education is definitely one use case. Also, that when you go to a scale of like the companies that you're mentioning, right? They generally have teams allocated for different channels and different efforts. So you'll have
yeah.
one team doing cold outreach, one team doing, cold calling, right? One team looking into paid ads, right, and so on and so forth. But I don't think it's an education use case. Another trend that I definitely do observe is with the invent and like the addition of so much of evolution with AI, right? What used to be a 20% or a 20% team effort has now become a one-person effort, right? What I don't see companies doing though is driving that enablement. They're not ready for that change, right? Because they're so used to their older systems, right? They're not ready to experiment with newer systems. And this has been our motto at Smartlead, right? We believe in failing faster and failing better. The goal is to experiment, yes. The goal is to adopt new strategies and new tools, yes. But the goal is also to fail, right? Because if you don't know what you're doing wrong.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
which case you'll be stuck with companies where they're just in those old systems, right? Because they're just not failing faster.
Yes,
So
I
yeah.
agree. I agree. Speaking of failing and like experiments, the last, question I have for you, which is the third topic, and the one of the questions we usually ask at the pod is regarding an experiment that you run, or a growth strategy, whatever, really. What was the thought process behind it, and like what were the results, right? Whatever you feel comfortable like sharing.
I would love to share this with you. If anything, we're actually running it. And again, another motto at Smartlead, right? The proof is in the pudding. If you can't use your own tool to run outreach and close people, then
Yeah.
how can you even pitch your product to other people, right? So I'll walk you through this. It's actually our third birthday uh, this month. We complete 3 years this month. So what we decided was, how can we enable our existing users for scale and enable them to grow with us in a manner where it's not burning a hole in their pockets, right? So we got onto multiple user calls. Again, started from setting up our infrastructure on Smartly, right? Got onto multiple user calls with different segments and ICPs to understand what is it that is a core requirement for them for Smartly, right? Uh, and again, got a lot of insights with respect to what they wanted from a product as well. Basis that we were able to create a per day specific offering for these users, right? Uh, and we did a limited drop. We enriched these users' information using Clay to drive insights as to what companies do they work for, what plan type are they at, what does their scaling requirements look like. All of this was done through Clay. So we were able to build that structure to understand and research about their companies, the next steps, whether they've raised funding or not, get all these intent signals in place, right? And then basis that we were able to create a list of qualified users, existing users, that we then reached out to with this offer. The results, 100 licenses or contracts booked within 15 minutes. So
Okay.
yeah, so
So
we actually have full calendars right now at the moment. And that's every sales rep or like, a salesperson's dream. Block calendars and happy customers.
basically, let me know if I'm getting this right. But what you did is that you got on calls with like customers, right? You asked questions and try to understand what, better understand their needs and like why they are here for and what they need and whatnot. And then you created an offer that's tailored to, many of these customers, right, who fall under a certain segment, and you dropped that offer, which was a limited one, limited in terms of the, what kind of
The number of
urgency.
contracts and
Ah,
drops we have. So yeah, we
okay.
had like from all our users, we ended up qualifying a pool of, let's say, 1,000 odd users, right? Uh, and then enriched them for company signals, funding signals, right? To understand what their requirements are and whether they will be scaling and whether they fit the qualification criteria that we had set. And basis that we created a generic plan, which was again covered across all the use cases, or a generic contract, I would say, or license, right? Which entailed every respective persona's use case, which entailed every persona's requirement from us and what they truly wanted from the product.
But this was not part of your standard pricing, the one that someone
Yeah.
will see. Ah,
This was just limited to our birthday month pricing. Yes.
hmm, that's interesting. Okay, that's not something you get to hear every day. And that's also something we could cover in my newsletter, Growth Waves. If you have screenshots and like things
Yeah.
from
We do.
kept from this, that's an interesting one. So I mean, what do you get out of this? Is it that the classic like whoever gets closer to the customer wins? Like you heard them and like you listened and they they just told you what
So
they
yeah,
need and you tailored it for them. What do you get out of this?
it's not more so about selling them the plan. It was more so about building. The job to be done here was building a relationship with these customers. Because we as a SaaS product are self-serve, the human in the loop element is missing,
Yeah.
right? What we wanted to do was not only get in touch with these users, understand their pain points, but at the same time enable them with a mechanism where they have a human conversing with them. So instead of doing self-serve, we went sales-led, right? What that enabled us to do was not only just get on the calls and pitch them this offering, but we were not hard selling them. We're like, hey, this is just an offer that you qualify for. If you're interested in it, we can jump on a call and probably walk you through this further. What ended up happening was they were interested in the offer, but the true outcome of that was because they were able to talk to a human and not just someone on a chat support bubble, right? People are actually sharing way more feedback. They're comfortable. They're building a relationship with us.
Hmm.
What that fosters is not more so of, again, not looking at it from a revenue perspective, even though I should as head of growth of Smartlead, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of building a relationship with these people, because the more you champion your users, the more they will champion you. And we're a firm believer of great inputs drive great outputs, right? So all of these outputs right now actually ended up working for us, not only because we're trying to push these plans for users and enable them better for their upcoming scaling needs or infrastructure, but it also ended up giving us valuable feedback as to what we should be catering our roadmap to for these users. What are the next set of products we should be launching? And that's the kind of intelligence you're looking for from your outbound. It's
Yes.
not what I'm going to achieve in like the next 1 or 2 weeks or next 1 month. You have to look at the long term picture. What am I going to achieve in the next 9 to 12 months, right? Where do I see myself? How do my users perceive my company in the next 12 months, right?
Yeah.
uh, do I still see them sticking around? If not, why not? If yes, then why?
I think another lesson here is that we are so obsessed and fixated on like acquisition and our acquisition growth loop and like, bring new users and like sure, but I mean you have all these users already, right? Why don't you do something about that? Especially if they've opened their wallet once, right? So that's also takeaway I think from this experiment. Well, that was all very interesting. Thank you very much for sharing all these things with us. Last question slash call to action. Where can people connect, find out more about you and Smartlead? Get in touch, say hi.
So you can, firstly, thank you so much, George, for having me on this podcast. I totally appreciate this opportunity. Uh, for anybody who's looking to get in touch with me or explore Smartlead, you can go to www.smartlead.ai. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm available on LinkedIn. My name is Swapnil Kumar. You can search for LinkedIn with Scale with Swapnil, and you can also reach out to me at swapnil@smartlead.ai.
Okay, that's great. We will drop all these things in the show notes. Swapnil, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, George.